right. Everybody, welcome to SKALE School episode 12, where we're having a discussion today on x402 facilitators with the notorious DEV from PayAI. You might notice a distinct lack of a British accent,
Yeah.
lack of glasses, maybe slightly better hair, but still the same name. Yes, it is substitute teacher Ben in here today, taking the reins from Falcor, aka Benjamin Davey. Excited to have this conversation today. Maybe we could kick it off. Notorious, do you want to give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure thing. This is the notorious DEV. Thank you for saying it correctly, by the way. I appreciate that. Um, I'm the founder at PayAI Network, and PayAI is building payments for AI agents, and we see payments kind of transforming as we enter this new age. Uh, Most recently, since about May, we've been heads down working on x402, and so we run a multi-network x402 facilitator, and I'm sure we're going to get into what that means in a little bit. Um, and yeah, I'm super excited to be here with you guys. We just recently announced support for SKALE Network as well, and so we'll get into that as well. Very excited to be here and to the convo that we're going to have.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. And as always, my counterpart from the SKALE Labs side is Sawyer. Sawyer, how are you doing today? Maybe give us a little update about what's going on in your world.
I'm good. I'm good. It's moving fast. Everything is just, I feel like, going so fast. AI has made the world of crypto, which historically moved at what, like 100x the speed of the real world. I feel like we're in this like 1000x now. We've like 10x the 100x. And I just feel like every day I wake up and there's like 10 new things I have to read through, understand, and then go try. Because I mean, it's just how I am, kind of tinker with it. And it's just fun. It's a fun time to be in this like convergence of blockchain, AI, payments, commerce. Yeah, it's just really cool. I mean, we're, in my opinion, I think we're pretty honored to have people, like Notorious here, who are coming. They're adding support for SKALE, and they're making it easier than ever to bring our incredible technology out to the world of all these people, developers building the functionally like the next generation of what people are actually using in the real world, right? Like basically the next internet is quite literally being created in front of us. And so yeah, I'm honestly just super pumped. It's a great time to be in x402 land.
Well, now that you dropped X402, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. I am a substitute. That doesn't mean that the inmates, get the run of the asylum over here. So would like to try and keep us a little bit on task. I understand that's not going to happen, but we're going to give a brief outline of what we're going to talk about today. Whether we end there is a different story, but talk about x402 facilitators, talking about the infrastructure that verifies and settles x402 payments for merchant and apps. Talking about what does a facilitator do? Why does it matter? And how, we look at PayAI and SKALE and how they think about production grade facilitator infrastructure. So maybe I'm covering that outline. I don't want to put too many rails up for you guys. So what I would like to do is kick this off with, what is an x402 facilitator? And why does it exist in as plain and simple terms as possible? What are the responsibilities of an x402 facilitator? and how does it affect buyers and merchants? Maybe who wants to take this one first? Sawyer, take it away.
No, I'm pointing up.
I believe he's pointing up.
I'm pointing upwards.
Pointing.
You
All right,
can't
I've
see-
got to learn the hand signals here. Okay, substitute teacher again. Hand signals. Yeah.
You can't see it, but I was pointing down.
How about this? How about we split the difference? I'll give a 10-word introduction to what x402 is, and then I'll hand it over to you for the facilitator piece.
That sounds great.
Cool. So to kick things off, for those of you that have not heard the term x402 before, it is essentially a open internet protocol, which means there's a definition and it can be implemented in many different languages, many different ways. And it allows us to essentially take a specification and implement it in the real world. X402 specifically is focused on internet native payments. What does that mean for all of those at home that are not super technical? Behind the internet is this thing called the Hypertext Transport Protocol. And that's all those little numbers you see when you visit web pages. You see like 200 green, that's good. You see like 404 bad, not found, right? Those are the HTTP status codes people are most familiar with. X402 is built on top of the 402 status code, which responds with payment required. So essentially, I want to go visit, for example, let's say Ben builds a music sharing application. I want to go listen to a song that Notorious, I don't know, published, wrote, produced, whatever. And he says, no, you can't do that unless you pay me. So he sends back a 402, and then I need to pay him to access that. And X402 is a protocol that allows us to use technically a variety of payment methods, but we're obviously blockchain, and the simplest one to use here is going to be a cryptocurrency, a stable coin that supports this protocol. And so X402 is essentially the think of it like the rails that make it really easy to actually make that functionality implemented and executed in the real world. Facilitators are a critical piece of infrastructure that I think actually make this a reality, because most people just don't have the capability to run this themselves. So now, up to you.
Cool. Thank you. That was a great introduction. Yeah, totally echo that. And I think X402 is working best when it's invisible. Everything is just going to be, it just works, right? The user won't even know what's happening behind the scenes, but all they know is that they're going to be paying for something. And the facilitator definitely helps with that. As Sawyer said, it's not a it's a very important piece of infrastructure, but it is not required. A merchant could technically roll out their own 402 oriented code and settle their own payment. The same way, potentially, you could go and bypass Stripe and handle credit card payments yourself, but no merchants really want to do that. I think the merchant wants to focus on their business, and yes, payment is a big part of that business, but if they spend their time trying to write payments code, they're not going to get anything else done. So that's the idea of the facilitator. It does its two main responsibilities at the moment, and this can grow. At the moment, it verifies transactions, so it lets a merchant know that this transaction looks good. It's from whoever the customer says they are. The customer has enough money to pay this amount. The customer then actually, creates a transaction for the payment. They create a payment, but they don't really need to know how it works. The client kind of handles that for them, and then the facilitator's second job is to settle the payment. And that happens currently on chain, like Sawyer said. It could happen in different ways in the future, but at the moment, in its simplest form, it's a payment that's settled on chain. And there are lots of things that a facilitator could do to kind of improve that process, make it faster, make it more resilient, kind of like productionize it. And those are things that a merchant might not want to spend time on doing. So those are kind of the two current main benefits or main use cases of a facilitator, and that was the scope of V1 of x402. And with the introduction of V2, there's this concept of extensions, which allow facilitators to more cleanly provide a value add experience for merchants. So they may start doing payment splitting, or they may start doing invoice generation. Who knows? It kind of allows the the merchant to get access to more functionality, and the client as well. And these extensions could work anywhere between like merchant, client, and facilitator, or merchant and client. But the facilitator just helps by abstracting away a lot of the complexity and making common requests easier.
Definitely. I think a couple of things I want to pull out there and kind of dive deeper into, because I think they're really important when we think about where does x402 fit into the world today.
Mm-hmm.
Why are facilitators so critical? Going even deeper on what you said, and then lastly, what's the actual experience we want to curate? And so I think actually I'm going to go in reverse there, starting with the experience. Crypto and blockchain, the industry as a whole, has struggled for the last 10 plus years. Obviously, 10 years ago, we were infancy. Even today, we're still very, very new compared to many established industries that are 2, 3, 4, 5 times older than blockchain. But I think one of the areas that we've historically struggled with is building things for real people. It's really easy to build a Web3 crypto protocol today that uses MetaMask and requires you to get gas and get tokens and sign 25 transactions and be an absolute headache. And if you really want to use it, you'll find a way. If you're like semi-technical or you work in crypto, you'll find a way. But the reality is, my grandmother is not ready to go use that. Ben's family is just not going to be like, hey, I want to go use I don't want to go use Uniswap. I don't want to onboard 7 tokens to go. It's terrible. And so I think, where we've always kind of been sitting on the scale side, scale over the day, is we've always focused on these invisible experiences, right? This idea that blockchain is a tool, it's a piece of infrastructure, really no different than your AWS server. The only difference is it's distributed by default. It has much greater level of trustless security through our consensus. And it's really freaking fast compared to other blockchains, right? And it's got a whole bunch of other privacy and agentic and gasless features as well. But at the end of the day, the goal is creating good experiences. Because if you want to get real people using it, it's got to be a good experience. So I like that you called out that facilitators help with that. Because very specifically, it helps with the merchant. The client doesn't actually notice a difference. This is a fun little part. If a client is going to pay a merchant, technically the merchant, if they're running their own facilitator, has an endpoint that the client hits, and it should be pretty similar. Where this really comes into play, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Notorious, is for the merchant. The people selling things is where this is where we'll call it maybe it's more developer experience than user experience here. But there's 10, I'm going to make up an arbitrary. There's 10 bajillion people selling software as a service, micro SaaS, AI software, AI agents, AI software as a service, business software as a service, enterprise software as a service, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these people selling things, and now you've got all these protocols also doing e-commerce for AI agents. Lots of people selling stuff. But the truth is, to your point, most of them don't really have, or a lot of them don't have necessarily deep technical experience. And those that do may have zero experience with blockchain or even payment integration, maybe very bare minimum, right? They're just integrating a couple lines of code. And that's what you do, right? You functionally let these merchants, these sellers do the same thing. Hey, you want to take x402 payments? Drop in these literally one line of code.
Yeah.
And add PayAI, facilitator.payai.network, and boom, you're now taking payments on scale, just like that, right?
Absolutely. That's the intended experience. And then we want them to kind of be able to try without buying even. So like you can access the all you need to do is point it at that URL. You don't need to log in. You don't need to do anything to get started. And that goes to further the point of you really want a frictionless and invisible experience. Get them started. Let them see what features are available to them. Let them feel the ease of accepting their first payment, and then you can add more on top of that. And I think that's a crucial piece of the puzzle. And yeah, the merchants, it is definitely more geared at merchants, right? The merchant is the target user here, and they want to be able to, the way I see it, and I think the end goal for us is, um, you want to accept this new payment channel of stablecoin payments, which is going to be more and more popular throughout the coming years. Just just do it via x402, and yeah, you can it's literally so easy that you can get started in 2 minutes. So that's the goal, and that's the pitch, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, for anybody that's listening, that is, you've got an AI SaaS company, you're selling SaaS, you're selling API endpoints, you're selling compute resources, and you've been thinking about it, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to hold your hand, help you get set up. It's not just our job, but we love this, right? We want to help you do this. And I think the reason that I'm so excited about this is, I think this is, in my opinion, the merchant side of x402, I think is, and maybe I'll phrase this wrong, but it's with good intention. I think it's a Jevons paradox situation. For those of you unfamiliar with this, it's something that I think people reference a lot, but it's one of those things that like you don't really think of. I always need to Google it when I want to reference it. But what it means is the supply can outpace the demand and then drive the demand. Historically, in most things in the world, everyone's probably heard of this phrase like, oh, there's all this stuff, but there's no demand, or like we need, like, as the demand grows, the supply comes to meet it. I think x402, kind of like the internet, is the opposite. I think it's very much so if we bring 10 million merchants online, the users are going to come. It's going to create its own demand because it is a better experience and it is a cheaper way to do things. It's more cost effective for people. And so I very much so think that's part of why the facilitator is so critical, is the merchants not only need it to be easy, but you also do things for them that they are required to do for compliance purposes. Fun fact, if you're a US registered entity and you accept a payment from an OFAC sanctioned wallet, you have a major problem. It's like there's sanctions against it. You'll get fined, go to jail. I don't know. Bad things will happen. And so if you actually go and look at the PayAI website, I think it's like 3 or 4 sections down, maybe on the right, if I'm not mistaken, there's a box that says OFAC screening. I think OFAC sanction screening or something like that.
Yep.
And that's something you do for all of the individuals, the clients and the merchants buying and selling through you, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the value add services that a facilitator can provide that potentially somebody doesn't know they even needed. Yeah.
Definitely.
And yeah, there's that. And there's like know your transaction, which is also on the roadmap for us. And then you've got certain things through like the extensions that I briefly mentioned earlier that provide a better experience for merchants that they also kind of didn't maybe know that they wanted. Like discovery is a big one that we get. And then once they learn about it, they're like, oh yeah, I totally want to be put in front of all these other websites just by going through you. So like discovery is a huge extension that's super useful. And yeah, those are all value add services that that you get out of the box just by using it. And then the other thing is that as a merchant, you kind of like, to further that point a bit, you kind of know what you need going into it. But then from the other side of it, as somebody who's speaking to lots of merchants all the time, you know about other use cases that merchants need that potentially this new merchant that came in doesn't even know that they need that yet, right? And so once a new merchant comes in and they see these other features, they're like, oh yeah, that's super useful. I didn't think I needed that, but actually I do. And that's a benefit of working with a facilitator or whatever, where they're getting all these feature requests from merchants, and they're kind of providing them to you, and then you're probably learning about something new that you didn't know you needed before.
Definitely. I want to double click into both of these pieces. The first is the discovery layer. So I think this is really critical in a way that has kind of been overshadowed. I think, and it usually happens because of, the meme coin surges and all that stuff. But it's something that I feel like in the early days of x402, Eric, the creator of the x402 protocol, or one of the creators from Coinbase, he was saying it a lot, which is that where x402 really shines and thrives is through autonomous discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is, if Ben, let's just say Ben is selling LLM inference, right? So he's got a whole bunch of GPUs in his garage, and he has, he's running like Quen and DeepSeek models locally on his machines, and he's serving those via some tunnel off the public web, and he's selling those. People are paying him. If I'm only going to Ben, the reality is I don't technically need x402, because I know where to send the money, right? I know what he wants to get paid in. I know where to send the money. So x402 becomes helpful from an orchestration perspective, especially if we start to add these extensions around like escrows and chargebacks and things like that. But today, there's actually a little bit less value there if I know exactly that I want to go to bed every time, right? But the beauty and the power of x402 in this discovery layer, which I think we're removing the bizarre name. I don't know for sure. I feel like there's mixed signals here, but originally it was called the Bazaar, which I actually think is a pretty cool name.
Same.
But basically, this discovery endpoint layer means that I need inference, right? I need to call some LLM, and I know how much I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to pay 1 penny for my call, but I don't know who I want to use or what I want to use or where I can go. And so what I do is I go to the facilitator, I go to PayAI, and I go to the discovery endpoint, which is part of it. It's one of the endpoints, the paths on the URL. So for example, I think for you, is it /supported or is it /?
There's a short one which is /list, which I preferred before. I think that was the first one, but now that redirects you to /discovery/resources. So
that's what it is.
Yeah,
thank you.
I like /list more though, but yeah, go ahead.
I agree. But anyways, so I go to this endpoint, and I can now see a list of all of the supported merchants that are currently using PayAI's facilitator, right? And so what that means is, let's say I have a AI agent who I put in charge of gathering daily statistics for visits to the Scale Network documentation and analyzing the traffic and figuring out where I've got problems. That service every day could use the same LLM, could use the same thing. However, the pricing may change, new models come out, whatever it is. And so I just let it go and search the discovery layer to get the best model every day. That is where the power of x402 really starts to grow, is you don't actually know what you need. Maybe today the best model is, OpenAI's GPT 5.2, but we're seeing a lot of rumors that DeepSeek V4 is going to be like world changing. So as soon as DeepSeek V4 comes out, I want my agent to use the best of the best at all times. And that's the command that I gave it, and it's autonomous and just goes. And so that's where the power of that discovery layer comes in, right? Is it just the LLMs and the agents start to make those decisions automatically, and they just use what's available publicly.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be enhanced as well. Like this is something that agents do with MCP as well right now. You go and you know, the agent sees like 1,000 MCP tools and it has no idea, like its context gets overflowed and then it doesn't know which one to choose. But with this discovery layer, you'll start to see you're going to start seeing facilitators introducing more metrics around the merchants. So say a merchant or even a specific resource of a merchant. So let's say a merchant provides inference as well as or maybe provides inference via DeepSeek versus inference via Opus or whatever. And then you're going to start seeing specific resources from a merchant, stats around those. So like, all right, this merchant sold $100 worth in the last 7 days of DeepSeek compared to Opus. So Opus is going down, DeepSeek usage is going up. That will help your agent or whoever, whether it's a human or an agent, looking at it to see kind of what's popular, what's good, and then which one to use. It's probably going to say, all right, I'm going to use the one that's getting $100 in volume compared to this this old model that's getting $10 in volume. Or maybe so there's that. And then recently with 8004 coming out, there's this like idea of reputation, right? If you want to agents, if we're focusing specifically on AI agents, they can kind of write reviews for each other and post that on chain. And then with that reputation compared with or in addition to the volume that's gone through a certain merchant, I think it gives an agent and even a human, if it's presented like visually, a much better idea of what to buy. Because you go to Google Maps and you look for the highest reviewed merchant and you look for like 5,000 reviews and you're like, all right, if it has 5,000 reviews and it has 4.8 stars, yeah, I'm most likely going to try it out. So yeah, this is beautiful. I think we're starting to kind of build out that system, but in an open and automated way that's like accessible to everybody.
I agree. And I, especially with the metric coming, I think it's going to really open up. I think it's going to open up a more dynamic economy. I think where x402 for me is a bit tricky right now is dynamic pricing is doable,
yeah,
but it's only dynamic for you. And so I think what's really interesting is, you look at we have a lot of them in the United States. If you go out of the United States, I've noticed that many countries have far fewer gas stations, and they really don't put them anywhere near cities. In the US, you've got gas stations everywhere. And what you'll notice is they clump up. So like I went to Paris like 5 months ago now, and I noticed, when you're driving in and out of Paris, there's like one gas station on the highway. And there's just like a line of cars, like miles long, waiting to get into the gas station. Because they don't really have that many gas stations, I guess. But where I live, I literally go down the street and there's like a gas station on all four corners. That's very common throughout the United States. And so it's one thing you'll notice is usually all of the gas stations have pretty much the same price of gas.
Right.
And if one goes down, they all follow. Or if one goes up, they all follow. It's like this kind of it's like a tag you're it kind of follow along thing. There's a logic there, I'm sure, that I'll learn one day. But the reason I bring this up is because I think where the facilitator has such a unique opportunity is to make those metrics consumable back to the endpoints. And I've been ideating on this. I've been kind of going back and forth on the whole extension thing because I'm still, the spec for the extensions is still a bit confusing to me. I haven't found a good piece to wrap my head around. Maybe this is one of them. I think that you will start to see, I hope, merchants capable of consuming the facilitator information, which is public, and using that to dynamically determine how to resell information. So for example, DeepSeek V4 goes live.
Yeah.
Ben's got the GPUs in his basement, and all of a sudden, he's still running DeepSeek V3.1, and DeepSeek V4 is out, and it's just as cheap. And Ben's seeing that his usage went from a few $100 a day down to $10 a day. And so what does Ben do? He says, well, I've already paid for the GPUs. I see this information coming down that I'm losing market share. I'm going to have it automatically slash my price by 50% if I'm, X% below the market. And so now Ben, his merchant, his server can reduce its cost dynamically to meet the market. And so now you get this like live fluctuation where people can directly compete, and they don't just get booted out of the market like you see in the traditional sales world, right? If someone comes in with a way better t-shirt that's cheaper, usually the person that had the t-shirt first, they're gone. That company they're just gone. In this case, Ben can now compete because someone may say, well, I actually don't need I don't need the latest and greatest. I actually prefer more about, I want cost effectiveness, and I see a deal here. Prioritize deals. If you see this change in price, jump on that.
Yeah, that's next level, man. I just took a note down. I think that's a great idea, and I think that's a value add. So not just so here it's not just the buyer who's getting a benefit by looking through the bazaar or marketplace, but it's also the merchant who can do some competitive analysis and price almost in real time if they wanted to their services. That's good, man. I like that.
And it can even go the other way. I mean, like if you're, it's like you could do, this opens up the door for discounts. It opens up the door, not just for like competitive discounts, but temporary discounts. It also opens up the door for like potentially hybrid, like prepaid credits. Like, hey, I love this service. Let me go prepay Ben $20 and maybe he'll give me 10% more credits or 10% more usage. Just starts to like open up all these opportunities where what?
I saw Ben shaking his finger.
You gotta give me a little bit more.
You don't want to give an extra 10%? Yeah. The 10% is baked into your margin though.
50.
We can take that offline, but yeah, I think this is where like I had a really good conversation with Connor, who joined us for SKALE School last week, if I'm not mistaken. We had a good conversation like a week or two ago about where facilitators will ultimately fit. And my belief is that facilitators over the next couple of years are going to wind up being the most competitive component of the x402 stack because of the fact that right now, facilitators are technically the most replaceable. And so that gives you it gives you the highest level of urgency to innovate and become a staple, which obviously you guys and a couple of the others already are. But if you're just running like a bare bones vanilla x402 facilitator, realistically, you are very replaceable. But if you start to build in these features, now you become, to your point, going kind of full circle, you become kind of like the Stripe.
Right.
Why would I go spend engineering resources trying to build and host this? Why do I spend more money? I would rather pay you a premium to do it for me.
Right. 100% agree. I think that's kind of the vision that we saw when we first looked at x402 from like looking at it more from a business side. It's definitely the facilitator has a great spot, and it's a win-win for sure. It's like merchants are getting a benefit, clients ultimately get a benefit, and the facilitator gets paid for the value add services that they're providing. I think the key is to kind of and the extensions help with this. The way I kind of see it is you want things that kind of fit into the core of x402 that are just payment related and don't require a facilitator, and then you want to keep the spec kind of moving along that route, and then the extensions really help with testing out all these value add features before, and if any of them kind of become so heavily used or become so like integral to the payment flow, then maybe you can promote them to be part of the core flow. But yeah, it is definitely important to keep building out the spec, and not provide too much lock in, so that the spec stays growing, which ultimately will grow the pie for all facilitators and everyone involved. So it's definitely a balance act, but we have to be careful to keep the 402 spec growing as a core, and then have the facilitators supplementing that instead of trying to take over it.
For sure. So let me ask you a question, because I was thinking about this kind of right when the V2 spec got finalized and officially published, and then you guys started to release the updates. One of the things I was kind of thinking about is whether it makes sense to create not really an entity, call it like a loose affiliated group of teams, some facilitators, some merchants, maybe a couple blockchains, and essentially create like an open extensions, like an open extensions GitHub or repo, where many extensions could functionally be contributed, and it becomes a lot easier to get them included. It can be, NPM packages, Python packages, whatever, and they can functionally be published via an official channel where there's actually some resources there to help validate that they're legitimate, they're going through the right security checks, things like that. But it's not really, it has zero impact on the core spec. It's just following the core spec. So the core spec says V2 extensions should look like this. Then you've got a group of entities driving forward more and more extensions. They don't have to worry about being pushed in upstream until they see significant adoption. It's kind of like a pre-core spec piece, but lets people actually get support and innovate with extensions without having to worry about like the x402 Coinbase team basically saying, yeah, no, this has no usage. We're not gonna.
Yeah, for sure. That could be useful. I think the extensions should, anyway, when it comes to the package level, I don't think they they should be packaged separately. So you should be able to do like, I want to install this specific extension only, and then it should fit well with the rest of the flow. And having a separate repo could definitely be very useful. I'm still like, I submitted an extension proposal a few days ago. Might make the pull request. I didn't get much discussion around it, but can go ahead and just get the pull request going. But yeah, you kind of need a team of people that are like, and it would have to include folks from Coinbase as well as the outside community to kind of give their input and see how it fits into the overall structure. Definitely useful. The question is where do the resources come from, right?
Fair enough. Yeah. Let's we'll take that offline, because I've got some ideas, but I think that could be good, because I definitely think extensions is one of those things where, like, I'm not the greatest engineer in the world, but I'm not half bad.
Yeah.
But I find them to be confusing from like what actually should not be an extension is mostly clear. But then implementation wise, I kind of look at it and I'm like, this thing is like nested pretty deep within a lot of within the core code base. And so I more want to understand how we can pull that out. Yeah. And someone could just build an extension and then have like a set of like mocks. And then like if you pass the mocks, the mock test suite, like this thing will work. I think that will help drive growth around people creating extensions, and then let facilitators have more opportunities to sell that to the merchants.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's good to kind of be able to define the extension at just that, like, on a textual level without any code written. And then let whoever wants to implement it, they can implement it their own way. But it's useful to have the extensions just spec'd out basically as well.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not part of the core spec, but like they should still be spec'd out in a clear way, and then let anybody implement it however they want. And whether that's in or outside of the upstream repo, I think both work. Yeah, it's definitely resources is I guess Coinbase resources in this specific situation is limited when it comes to that.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
in a slight pivot, because I know, Notorious, you're going to give us a demo at the end of this conversation.
Yes.
But what I want to do now is kind of take it in a slightly different direction, bring us back in a little bit and talk about privacy. And, where does and how does privacy show up in the facilitator layer? And what I mean by that is, what data should be visible versus minimized, and, how can, to make this a little bit more scale centric, how can Scale's execution environment help facilitators, serve merchants, especially as we're scaling up, right? No pun intended, but we've been talking about, right? Like, this is going to be an incredibly competitive space. We're bringing millions, to the x402 area. Like, how can we help facilitators serve merchants with low friction and predictable cost? Sawyer or Notorious or Sorius now, if you both have time. Does somebody want to take this one first? I can't see any hands being raised. So Notorious.
Sure, I can get started. Yeah, I think privacy. Well, there are two layers, I guess. When it comes to discovery, you definitely want merchants to be able to opt in and opt out. Like, there's always it's always a trade-off between privacy and usefulness. Maybe not usefulness, but yeah, like let's say usefulness for lack of a better word. So, like, the more data that you can collect, the better suggestions and better analytics you can provide, and that's good for merchants and clients overall, and so like merchants and buyers overall, in my opinion. But merchants need to be able to opt out of any data collection if they don't want it. So if you don't want a facilitator saying how much volume went through your resource over a certain time period, or if you don't want them to say how many successful versus failed transactions you had, or if you don't want them to mention your uptime, for example, you should be able to opt out, and that already exists. There's privacy on another level, which is the actual transaction amount and settlement that's happening on the blockchain, and blockchains are open by default, and they're public by default. I think that's a big part of the ethos of blockchains. However, as we kind of go more and more mainstream, this need for privacy, especially if chains are going to be used as a settlement layer, seems to be growing and will continue to grow. And I don't have the answers. I know ZK is probably a piece of it, like shielded transactions. I think on a 402 spec level itself, perhaps we are not super opinionated on that. I think the when it comes to settlement, whatever the underlying layer is I think maybe what needs to deal with that or what can help with that, and then the facilitators can adapt their flow to leverage features of whatever the settlement layer actually is. And yeah, and that's I think that covers all of it from my perspective.
Very nice. I agree with, I think, all of that. I don't think there's anything there I don't agree with. Privacy is an interesting beast, because I think first of all, there's a lot. Privacy is big, right? And it's definitely one of those topics. I think we talked about this last week. It gets hot and then it gets cold. It's like it's in the meta. It's what everyone's talking about. Everyone's excited, and then it disappears. I think right now we're back in like the cold period a little bit. I think no one's really talking about it. AI is much hotter. People are still building privacy solutions, but compared to like December, in December, everyone was talking about privacy. I feel like right now people aren't. And so that to me is relevant though, because it tells a story. And that story is privacy is not a short-term feature. Privacy is a primitive and an expectation that we should be building toward, and it's becoming table stakes. The reason that in itself is even more relevant to x402 is because when we think about payments, when we think about commerce, whether it's humans or AI, there are certain levels of privacy that we've come to expect. We talked about this last week in the barista test, or with the barista test. And I think as people put more money on chain and they want to spend more money on chain, whether it's visibly or invisibly, doesn't really matter. They still want the same level of privacy. Everybody, well, not everybody. I'll say like most people I know have a bank account in the country of where they live. Whether they choose to use crypto or not, most people still tend to have a bank account. And the reason for that is because that's normal in most society. Obviously, yes, there are places in the world that do not have the infrastructure or the rights to have that. And I do hope those areas get to improve and get these opportunities. I think everyone deserves financial freedom. However, in the majority of the established world that we're kind of referencing here, there is this expectation of privacy. And so I think you called out, I'm going to pull something out of what you said and I'm not going to wrap this up. It's the underlying layer. So for example, if PayAI, right, you guys are on Base, you're on Solana, you're on Scale on Base.
Right.
You on Polygon?
Yes.
You're on Polygon. And any others?
There are a few others. There's like SEI, Avalanche, XLayer, maybe looking to do Arbitrum next, but we are, yeah.
Perfect. So PayAI runs on all these chains, and all these chains have different feature sets. They've got different speeds, different performance, different costs. They've also got different risk to finality. And so all these things are relevant. But what that also means is every chain gives PayAI the opportunity to sell something different to the merchant.
Right.
So going back to Ben, obviously Ben, we're going to pretend Ben doesn't work for Scale for a second. Ben is just a merchant selling GPU inference out of his garage. He's killing it. He's making $1 million a year selling GPU inference out of his garage, and I'm very jealous.
Especially after he added 10% discounts.
This is true. After 10% discounts, he's raking it in even more. Good economics there. So Ben is selling GPU inference, and he may say, "I'm going to accept payments across all of these networks, right? I'm going to accept payments across all these networks." And what he notices is that Scale introduces this new feature which allows for privacy, private transactions and private balances and all these good privacy features. And he starts to see a growth, right, an increase in people spending on that network. Why? Because PayAI didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to do anything. That's just a feature that can work by default automatically on that chain. And it's something that everybody built on top of that chain gets to pick up. And so I think, again, that's for me where I see privacy really going is it's a primitive and it's a component that is becoming table stakes and that blockchains will either need to build in or ultimately get left behind if they do not already have a moat of users. Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, probably okay. They've been around for a long time. They've got a moat. But a lot of these other ones that don't really have anything going except they claim to be faster, well,
yeah,
sorry, not really relevant anymore. Cost is not really relevant anymore. You need to have things that users expect. And so that's kind of where I see privacy really fitting in on top of all the things that you kind of called out there.
absolutely agree. There's another interesting thing. I think throughout the rest of this year, we'll start to see when it comes to x402, we'll start to see more cross-chain settlements. And so you could have a buyer on Scale, and then you could have a merchant on Zcash potentially, right? And then or maybe the merchant, you know, doesn't really know where they want. So to further your point, they just say, I want privacy, and then we'll say, all right, well, we're going to settle your transaction on Zcash, but the buyer could have money anywhere, right? And then
Definitely.
there will be some routing, some magic that happens behind the scenes that satisfies that requirement. So
Definitely. And we actually did, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was actually one of the things that HTT Payer showed off last week, was a payment on Scale on Base that settled on Solana, if I'm not mistaken.
there you go.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, right? Like, no one here is naive enough to think that there's only going to be one blockchain for the entire world to run off of. You know, everything's a little bit different. Every chain, ideally, not currently, but every chain does have its benefits and advantages. I think there's still, in my opinion, some culling that needs to take place. There's too much out there right now that's all the same. But yeah, I mean, it's a cross-chain future, right? And you know, at the end, we have to think about the end user, and we have to think not only if they're human, but also, you know, an agent. It needs to be seamless. I heard Notorious, you say it earlier, it needs to be frictionless, it needs to be invisible, all of these things that I think have come out of people that work at Scale for as long as I've been at the company.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. Like we need to create an environment that is, you know, is going to encourage people to enter x402, encourage agents to enter x402. That's going to encourage the millions of, you know, hundreds of millions of use cases that are going to come out of this, which we all believe is the case. We have very bullish on this. So I don't know, we're bumping up on time. If we have the demo ready,
Yeah.
Notorious,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm okay to go a few minutes over as well if you guys are. So let's go to, let me start sharing my screen.
And for the record here, I did attempt to provide an endpoint to be used here, but well, I broke it, so we're not going to be using the endpoint. We will be using PayAI though. Glad your stuff works.
Yeah,
mine doesn't.
Let me see if hopefully this, I've got my privacy settings locked down. Let's see if this works though. Okay, we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and share our stream. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I think it's very zoomed in though.
Okay.
All I can see is like you are sharing your entire screen. You stop sharing, which usually is at like the bottom or the top.
Okay.
You're sharing you're sharing the widget. You're not sharing the screen.
Got it.
That's the our embodied voice behind the scenes. I like it. I like it. Thank you, Mr. Ben.
The real Ben.
We had
let's go again here.
Unfortunately, Mr. Ben is feeling a touch under the weather today, so he's been making himself known through this voice that just keeps popping up randomly. There we go.
Awesome. So we're gonna go to x402.pai.network. This is kind of like our little, we call it the Echo Merchant. It's meant to be a tool for anybody that just wants to try x402 in a really fast way. And you can test mainnets and you can test nets here. We're gonna go ahead and test Scale Base mainnet. So this says you're gonna pay 1 cent to access this resource, and hopefully the demo gods are with me today. We're gonna go account 1. We're on Scale Base. And what the Echo Merchant does is it'll accept your payment via x402, and then it'll refund you your payment, so that basically you just get to test for free. So for anyone that's unfamiliar, the x402 flow, one of the reasons it's really nice is that it doesn't require the buyer to have or even know or need to know what gas is. It's abstracting away the blockchain. So all the buyer needs to have or know about is their digital currency, whether it's USDC, USDT, whatever is going to show up in their bank account. Basically, I imagine in the US we're going to see a lot of USD that behind the scenes is actually USDC, right? So your bank wallet or your whatever e-wallet you're using is going to show USD on it, and then you go ahead and make a payment. You don't need to know what gas is or any of that. You just confirm it. It says, we're going to take a cent from your account, and then the payment kind of goes through. And in this case, there's a refund, which I believe makes it go a little slower. So normally it would be faster than that, but since we did 2 transactions to refund your payment, it takes a little longer. But basically, that's it. You confirm the payment, and all of this happened via 402. Actually, what would be cool if we want to get a little technical is I can show you the request and response from the merchant as well. But
Yeah.
basically what you get is this was the payment and this was the refund. And then in the response, you get the client receives the transaction hash, the network, this is Scale, and then the payer, which is my wallet address.
Amazing.
Yeah. And if you click this, you can kind of see it on the Explorer as well.
Nice. And I mean, I know you guys just recently set up support. I think start of last week, if I'm not mistaken, was when you guys kind of got set up. We haven't even had a chance to do any optimizations. So I think once we haven't had a chance to talk about Scale's finality yet, but once we do, I think we'll actually be able to probably speed that up even faster.
Nice.
Since confirmations and stuff can be dropped down to 1, since we have instant finality.
Nice. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, the experience will probably be less than 1 second in terms of settlement. And you have some things that get in the way as well. Like it could, there's the RPC server.
Of course.
So, but what I'd like to do, let's see if we can get a little nerdy. I want to look at the network. So the browser in this case is what we call the client or the buyer, and then it's technically your wallet, and then the wallet is gonna create the payment and then send it through the browser, which is the client, and it's gonna hit the merchant, the Echo merchant, aka x402.pai.network, and then the merchant's going to forward the request to the facilitator. That happens behind the scenes. You're not going to be able to see it here unless I open up my Vercel app. But that's the merchant side. That's the server. And then the server will use the facilitator, settle the transaction, and then get the success status from the facilitator, and then return it back to the client. So let's see how that goes. We go pay now. Hold on. I want to see the actual 402. So the 402 hits as soon as you load the page. So there's paid content at this route, and the browser already tried to access the paid content. And you can see here that it got a 402. And then the 402, which is what this whole discussion is about, is that status code that says payment required. If you go to Mozilla, it says no standard convention exists for now. This is what we're building, right?
We should probably make a PR here.
Yeah, that would be really cool. It might be a little longer before they put it here, but that's the goal, right? It's an emergent payment standard, and eventually, we want to be there. And then in this response, you'll see the request header. So this is what our browser sent, and there's nothing in here regarding payment yet. But the response from the server will tell you that payment is required. And I believe this is I believe in V1, it just happened inside the There should be a response header here. Let me check. Oh, here it is. Payment signature, payment response, and that's interesting. Well, that did not go as planned. There should be a response header in here, but I can't find it at the moment. So we'll go ahead and let me just make the payment and see how that goes. Maybe something shows up there. So this is the payment request, and inside the request here, we're actually sending a payment signature, and these are the request headers, and this contains like this part of the spec, and this contains the payment, right? And then the server gets this, sees this header, takes this, decodes it, pulls out an actual payment, an actual transaction, and settles it itself or by using the facilitator. And then you get a response, right? And the response could be whatever the locked content was. In this case, it was this HTML page. So that's kind of it. I'll dig back into why the initial response didn't have a header in it. There should be a header in here, but maybe it's happening it could be happening in the middleware, right? In the middleware, and then maybe the middleware is swallowing it or something and not sending it back. But
it's all good.
Yeah,
this was great.
Yeah, so that's kind of the anatomy of a 402 transaction, and here we're seeing Scale as the settlement network.
Amazing. This is awesome. And we'll maybe we'll do we'll link up and do a private one now that we've got on that chain the ability to do encrypted transactions. So that can be actually encrypted all the way through the mempool, which can open up some really unique opportunities around ensuring that people can do maybe some more dynamic cross-chain or dynamic payments without being front run or anything like that. So, but I know we're over time here, and I'm sure Mr. Ben Davey is probably not happy with me. But we'll blame him. It's okay.
Your teacher, lost the run of time. So as was expected to be happening.
It's all good. This was fantastic. Thank you, Notorious DEV, for joining us today. This was absolutely incredible. I definitely think we're going to have you back as we maybe build out some of these extensions together. And just a reminder that Scale is deeply focused on supporting all builders on the agentic front. Whether you're building a facilitator, an AI agent, a merchant, doesn't matter. We're here to support. Make sure to reach out if you're building and are looking for any resources, support, just someone to sound an idea off of. And we also now officially have PayAI, one of the top facilitators in the entire space, live and ready to go on testnet and mainnet. So let's build. This was incredible. And that's everything on my side. Anything else from you guys?
No, thank you all for having me. And I will say the integration with Scale was super easy. And you guys, thank you so much for being there and for the support when we needed it. And it was a breeze. So would definitely recommend others to do the same. And I'm looking forward to what we cook up together.
Let's do it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. That was SKALE School episode 12 with PayAI. Have a good day, a good afternoon, a good evening, a good night, wherever you are around the world. And